Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it's Friday. So you know what that means? It's Friday. Yeah, you know what? I can't even do the song today, people. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it's not a fun Friday. This is not a fun Friday. The fat waffles are gonna be sad later today. There will be no singing. There will be flower bringing. There will be no burglar alarms ringing. The Minnesota Timberwolves have been eliminated from the playoffs. We all know that. But again, I'm Ron Johnson. We got Reggie Wilson. We got Julia Daniels. She's dressed in her funeral apparel. Reggie Wilson looks like the cousin that just showed up to the funeral. And he's like, after this, I got a date after this with my wife. So Reggie's coming in with the chains. He's like, I'm not really going all black. I did the Timberwolves funeral colors. I got a Timberwolves tee, got the blazer, because we got to put the season to bed. We got to bury it. It's over. They never had a chance. But we'll talk about all that and much more coming up on the roundtable. But before we do that, we got to get into some of these topics. So Reggie, what you got for us today?
So obviously we're talking Wolves, and it was a strong season from them. Just kind of flamed out at the end right there. But we'll talk about the season in review, but also some off-season burning questions for the Wolves.
And you know what? The men didn't deliver this week, but the ladies sure did. PWHL Minnesota wins the very first Walter Cup. I'll recap their final series and all the drama that came with it.
And I was emceeing with Gabe Henderson last night, the CJ Ham Vikings softball game. And there was another female, a woman that stepped in when a man couldn't get it done yet again. So I'll make a little bit of a note about last night's event, but also we got to talk about what's this going to look like? Like, what is this going to look like next for Kat and Anthony Edwards? Is Rudy Gobert the answer? Is it finding somebody else like Kevin Durant? Is it going out and getting somebody else to help this team out? Is Bronny the answer? Maybe LeBron will follow him to Minnesota. We'll talk about all that and much more. Of course, we got to talk Minnesota Twins as well, and we'll do that after a quick word. Just want everybody to know, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Just go down and download the Gametime app. You can't get Timberwolves tickets anymore, but you can get Twins tickets. So make sure you go on the Gametime app, find the Twins tickets. You can get really, really good seats at a really good price last minute. Make sure you download that app on your phone. And then when you show up to the game, you don't have to worry about scalpers or anything like that. But now it's time to get into the show. Again, we got Reggie Wilson, Julia Daniels joining us from Care 11. Sam is somewhere flying over the skies of the world, and we're going to jump into the show. So with no further ado, I want to get everybody's kind of quick thoughts as we bury this 2023-2024 basketball season. The Wolves game reaction to Game 5. Anthony Edwards told Micah Parsons, "I'll bring you some shoes." Hey, he's rich. He's got a jet. He can fly back to Dallas and get that man some shoes, but it's not going to be on the team's dime to play another game. So I'll start with you, Reggie. What were your thoughts? Just quick reaction to Game 5.
Yeah, man, it was a disappointing night for the Wolves. You know, that's pretty much putting it lightly. But what was interesting to me was Luka Doncic was like, "Look, man, I'm tired. This ends tonight." And he came out, hit his first 5 shots, and it was like, oh, snap. Okay. He's on one. And look, kudos to the Wolves. They were like, look, we're not getting swept. But I think, you know, they expended so much energy in that Game 7 or in that series against Denver in general. And then they come out and they lose games 1 and 2, and they probably should have won those games. And it just snowballed from there. And then they have their best effort of the series, and it still just felt like it wasn't there. Anthony Edwards said, "We still didn't put together a complete performance, even in the win that we had." And then they come out there and just get their doors blown off real quick by the Mavs. It was a very disappointing effort, but I think, you know, they put all they could into avoiding the sweep, and they did that, but I just don't think they had any more steam left. It was interesting after the game, Anthony Edwards said that they trained like they were going to just play 82 and you know, maybe another series after that. And that was pretty telling that before the season, you know, he didn't feel like they were training for a championship. But I think what this unlocked was that they need to find another level to get to so that they could sustain. Because if this is something that they want to do, Anthony Edwards wants to be great. We know that he has the drive to be great. He always wants to be the best at everything that he does, and that drives him. They have to go to another level and say, look, I need to get back in the best shape of my life. I need to go back to my college days when I was going to college and I was in the best shape of my life. I need to get back there. And we saw a lot of deficiencies in his game and in the team's game in this series, and Dallas exposed those, and they just ran out of steam. And it was tough to watch all that this season was. And now, it just ended in a thud like that. But, we'll get into the season recap, but it was a pretty fun season, especially considering that there was not a whole lot of momentum they were riding into the postseason, and they rode that all the way to the Western Conference Finals. You saw the mistakes that were made, that maybe this series is still going and is going back to Dallas. That Luka Doncic, what ended up being the game winner in Game 2, ended up, looming large in this series, and it was just a really tough way to go out.
And Julie, when you look at Game 5, because I'm watching some people talk about it now, they're saying the Wolves were tamed. I don't know if it's so much the Wolves were tamed or more so Kyrie was just in his bag. Him and Luka came out on fire at halftime, 61% from the field, and the Timberwolves were 30-ish% from the field. So that's the reason why they almost doubled them up in points. But when you saw that halftime score, what was your thoughts on Game 5, and did you ever think they had a chance to come back in the end?
I'll be honest, after the first quarter, I thought it was over.
So time of death, 7:52. Okay, got it.
It was, the Wolves defense is something that we talked about all season, but their defense couldn't get anything going because their offense couldn't get anything going. They looked completely discombobulated offensively, and Finch said that in his post-game presser. He acknowledged the fact that they just completely were thrown off. But when Kyrie and Luka combined for 72 points in one game, you got no shot, because how do you keep up with that? And also, I think it's something to be noted. Reggie talked about Ant wanting to get back into the best shape of his life. These guys look gassed. They look gassed in almost every single game, especially when you would see the isolated shots of the Wolves bench when they're having a timeout, and you'd see the Mavs bench. Two completely different conditions that those teams were in. Last night, Ryan, our sports producer, and I were sitting there watching the game, and at one point I was like, why are we watching this still? What are we,
Because they're going to come back. That's why.
Right, because they have given Wolves fans glimmers of hope, so many times in this postseason. But the Wolves defense that we covered all season just wasn't there because offensively they couldn't get anything going. They've got to figure out, and we'll talk about what off-season burning questions we have. But shots were not going, and sloppy turnovers, and the Mavs, you have to give credit to the Mavs defense too, because they took care of business last night, along with the fact that their offense was completely firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and when you look at the the Mavericks too, you notice they had more guys with more points in their box score compared to the Timberwolves, and that's probably the reason for them being a little gassed. The Mavs, because of the lead, because of the distance, they were able to get more guys to assist in this game. But Kyrie and Luka's the story. 36 points apiece. Now, what's crazy is Anthony Edwards and karl-anthony Towns, 28 points apiece. I don't know if that's ever happened where the two stars on both teams each scored the exact same points, but 36 and 36 and then 28 and 28, it just shows the stars were going. They were doing everything they could. But the Timberwolves, on the other hand, when you only get 9 points from Rudy Gobert, normally he's in double digits. Jaden McDaniels expected a bigger game from him or somebody. Naz Reid only gave you 5 points. Games before that, he had 5 3-pointers in a row. Like, you have to find ways to get the other guys going. And because of the barrage of Luka and Kyrie, they just couldn't. Like the other guys couldn't get involved. I mean, at one point there was even a joke about Kyle Anderson having the same quick trigger as Reggie Miller. And it was definitely a joke because of how slow it took him to shoot the three. He made it, but it's just like they could not find ways to get into the offense they had been in. And I think you're right, Julia. It was fatigue. Like when you're mentally fatigued, you're not playing the way you've normally played. They wasted so much energy in that game to not get swept. When they were getting swept, it was so many games where they just had to put their heart on the line and couldn't get it done in the end. You look at the dumb turnovers at the end of games. If they were to go back and watch those plays again, couple plays here and there, they probably are 2-2 at that point, coming back to Minnesota versus 3-1. And then they get to go back to Dallas for game 6, maybe down 3-2. And they still end up probably winning in Dallas to force it to a game 7. But the fact that they had those turnovers in other games. So my quick reaction to game 5, I saw the same thing. I just saw that they had no answer for what Luka and Kyrie were doing. None. Like the Mavs came out early and said, you know what? If we're going to die, we're going to die with our ballers. And the fact that Luka looked at a fan at one point, Snoop Dogg loved it, and Jimmy Jam or Terry Lewis, I wasn't sure which one that was. I didn't see. Sitting by him. I think it was Lewis.
Jimmy Jam.
It was Jimmy Jam.
Yeah.
When you look at him, he literally said, "Who's crying, MFer?" Like literally looking at the fans. Like he knows everybody's tweets. He knows all the pictures.
Hear him say it on the broadcast.
Right. Like he wasn't holding back. He's like, I don't care, find me. We're about to win this game. You can't stop me from going to the championship. Like a tech right now or a fine right now is not going to hurt me. I don't care. Who's crying, MFers? Like I'm not crying. Now, the fact that he had all that, he had built that up for this game to say, you know what? I'm sick of this. I don't want to come back to Minnesota for game 7. I don't want to go home to Dallas and have pressure to try to win and close out at home. They absolutely got embarrassed on their home court, and that's the way the season's going to end. That's the sour taste is going to be in the mouth the rest of the season. But, Julia, I love what you said about the conditioning. This is what, and again, I hate to keep doing this, but the Michael Jordan, I don't know if you guys remember, when Michael Jordan got his butt kicked by the Pistons, he said he went and put on a weight vest. He would run miles. He said he went and ran heels. He said he put on 10 pounds. He said he lifted extra in the offseason. He said it was no more just shooting and run up and down and eating egg whites. It was, I'm going to do some potatoes. I'm eating the whole egg this time. I'm getting all the protein, and I'm lifting, and I'm getting stronger. And I think that's what's going to come for Anthony Edwards. He's already strong, but now he's got to get in better shape because you don't know what you don't know. He didn't know what it took to get to a championship. Now he's there. He was almost there, and now he knows I'm not quite there. Here's another thing, and there's a question for you guys. Moving on to the next topic, because we gotta move on. We gotta bury the season. It's buried. At some point, I'm gonna take the jacket off because I'm done. I'm done with the funeral. We buried him. We're done. Julia, I know you got to keep yours on because you got to go to a press conference. But you're looking very funeral-esque. I love it. You're looking quite nice with the attire. I feel like you're like Martin. I don't know if you ever seen that episode, Martin, when he was trying to do New Jack City and he was trying to figure out who stole his CD player. And ended up being Bruh Man from Fifth Flow. He walked in dressed in black, and the characters on the show almost they almost lost it. I love seeing that clip because they were about to break character because of how they didn't realize what he was going to do. He didn't tell them what he was going to do, and so they were all caught off guard when he came in with the fake dog. But we're not gonna talk about that. This is not a Martin breakdown. This is the Timberwolves recap. Question for you guys: when you look at this season and you see what would happen with the players, and you talk about what's next and who's going to be there and what should they do, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, do you think in this roster, the way it's set right now, they made it to the Western Conference Finals, so you can't say no, but you could. Do you think there's one small piece missing? Because Monte Morris trade, everybody thought that might have been the answer, but it wasn't. And being continuing to come in and help you guys out. Jay McDaniels and Kyle Anderson as the additional kind of person when Mike Conley goes out. Do you think there's something missing with this team? I'll start with you, Julia.
Yeah. They have to find somebody that can consistently be an outside shooter. They just don't have that right now. They can't. I mean, you get your exciting games from Jaden McDaniels when he's hitting every three, or like Nas in game 4 where he, like you said, gets 5 threes in a row or something. Ant will be on, but it's never somebody that you can consistently rely on in that sense. And I think that that's something that they're missing for sure. And something that could obviously, help them out a little bit, give them a little offensive boost, because for the most part, they have the defense on lock, but You find somebody that can do that for you, and I think you're set. I feel like they kind of like put Jordan McLaughlin in last night, thinking maybe something like that was going to happen with him, but you just haven't seen it.
Yeah, Michael Jordan got Steve Kerr, so we remember that, and then Paxton as well hit some shots for Jordan. Those were his guys. I mean, if you go back to Derek Fisher with Kobe, and you go back to Robert Horry with the Rockets, like they always had guys that would get you some shots in big moments. And yeah, you're right. The Timberwolves, it wasn't all the time. It was if he's hot, everybody's excited, and if he's cold, which we saw last night, you get 5 points. You get 8 points, and that's not enough to go with a team like Dallas, who is an absolute juggernaut. I thought the defense, I was well under. I thought they would only score. I thought they score under 100 points, and they went way past that. But the funny thing was, I don't know if you guys saw, I was listening to Dan Patrick's show yesterday about the over-unders for the scoring. Luka's over-under was 29.5. He definitely killed that. Anthony Edwards was 28.5. He went he was under. Like that's what's so crazy about the bettors, because you always wonder like where these numbers come from. And there you have it. Anthony Edwards was 28.5. Luka was 29.5. Luka surpassed it. Anthony didn't. And I think that was one of the questions they had. If either of these guys go under their, allotted scoring that they're supposed to hit to win these games, who wins? And a lot of guys said that if Anthony Edwards doesn't go over, the Timberwolves can't win. I don't think it was just that, though. It was other guys need to help out. But Reggie, when you look at that, can this team coexist next year, or do they need to add a piece?
Yeah, I think they need to add a piece. I was talking to my photographer on the way home, JT, and he was like, this team needs a Scottie Pippen. Okay. And I thought about it, and I was just like, yeah. If Ant is, pseudo Michael Jordan or whatever, like they need someone who can also get a bucket, who can also defend at a high level, because we saw it. I think we've seen the evolution of the NBA. It was just, you had a star and a supporting cast. And then, you got to the era where, you got past like the Kobe Shaq Lakers. And then, Kobe had a firm team around him, that Boston Celtics team that KG won the finals with. Sorry to bring that up. But he had a firm team around him. And then you saw the super teams. Everybody's like, oh, you need 3 stars, and now I think what you've seen is that you need 2 stars. You need like 2 legit bona fide stars. We saw it in the last series. Joker and Murray are an incredible 1-2 punch. The 1-2 punch of Kyrie and Luka, those dudes are killers. I think you wanted to see that it was Ant and Cat, but just like when Cat is not in the game, and Ant was right. Like when Cat is on, nobody is beating the Timberwolves. But like, it's so tough to think about like relying on Cat, because the skill set that he has seems so niche, and it seems so like just, I don't know. It's tough because is Cat a third scorer? But then paying him $50+ million a year, do you pay him that much to be a third scorer? Like I think that's a tough one when we kind of transition to offseason burning questions. I know we're not there yet, but like I think that's something that we think about. I think Ant needs another guy so that if he is facing the double teams, if he is, going and getting trapped, there's somebody else who you're like, man, we can't take this person lightly because they're going to kill us too. And that was Kyrie for Luka. That was Murray for Jokic. That was the recipe. You see that with Kawhi and PG when Kawhi does play in LA. You need a second star. You need a second superstar who is going to take just as much attention as the first superstar, so that, Ant was drawing double teams for the first time, he said, in his career. And, we saw it was like sink or swim. He was, an outlet pass or across the court pass, or it was like a turnover. And, transitioning from that's going to be something that he's going to have to get better with at his game is how do I beat double teams more consistently, because now he's the star that people are watching out for. But you also need to get him some help because he can't do it all on his own. And so it was tough to see. We saw a glimmer of it in game 4 with Cat showing up for his 25 points. But then, in a game like game 5, they needed somebody to keep up with Luka, and they just didn't have that. So I think they need a secondary scorer who can also be an alpha at times as well. They need a Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, and when you think about, Jordan, Scottie, that was the two guys. And then you also had Tony Kukoc. You also had, Kerr, you had Pax, like they had guys that would come in and be a part of it. But they didn't really have two bigs. Like their bigs, Horace Grant and Bill Cartwright, weren't they weren't the perennial scorers. They were the defenders that would like really do the dirty work, get you rebounds. Then they bought in Rodman, same thing, get you dirty work, get you rebounds, get you some fast break layups and dunks, get you some putbacks, do the dirty work. When you look at the Timberwolves, the way they're constructed, I agree with you, Reggie, on that. Like I don't know if Rudy Gobert is the answer, and I hate to say it. I know a lot of people keep saying defense player of the year, X, Y, and Z. But when you think about the big threes, when they always had them, Kevin Garnett was not Rudy Gobert. He was a scorer with Paul Pierce and Rajon Rondo and Ray Allen. Like he was a scorer. He was a guy they could rely on to give them big buckets and big minutes in the post, dominate. That's more of Cat. I feel like Cat needs to be the KG of a big three. He doesn't need to be the Pippen or LeBron of a big three. When you think about D Wade, sorry, LeBron was the guy. When you look at LeBron, D Wade, and then Bosh. Like Cat could be the Bosh, spread the floor out, knock the three down when Wade or LeBron are driving. That's why it needs to be Ant and one other guy. He needs another person. Like we talk about Batman and Robin. I don't know if Karl-Anthony Towns is a Robin. Karl-Anthony Towns is like, I don't even know, like somebody else from the Marvel series, like the Flash or the dude with the mechanical body. Like, I don't know, but he's not Robin. And he wants to be Batman at times, and that's the other problem. Like, but I hope he knows his place now. So, but we got to move on. We're going to talk about what's going to happen. What's the burning questions for the offseason? What's the burning questions that people want to hear or talk about next season? We'll talk about all that and much more. We still got to talk about the women's teams are winning championships. The Lynx hockey team. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Gophers women's softball team have won championships in the past with Big Ten. The men just can't get it done. We'll talk about all that and much more. I'd say men's basketball got it done at some point, but they took those banners away for the Big Ten championship. We're not going to talk about that with all this NIL and $2.8 billion. Give us our banners back, people. The money doesn't matter anymore. Who cares if they cheated on tests? Give us the money back. Give us the banners back. But we'll talk about all that much more after a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Ron. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Gametime, because you should never have to worry when buying tickets to any big event. And that's why Gametime is the fastest and it's the easiest way to buy tickets to any local event. We're talking concerts, comedy shows, sporting events, even Broadway theater. And with killer last-minute deals and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Personally, for me, I love that view from the seat feature so I can get a real look on where my seats are going to be, so I know exactly what to expect before spending all that money. And with their all-in prices, Gametime shows you exactly how much you're spending with no hidden fees. It's time to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. See for yourself just how easy it is. Just create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, just create any new account and redeem your code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Go download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Gametime, terms apply.
Well, now it's time for these off-season burning questions. What you got for us, Reggie?
I think the biggest one is Cat. What happens with Cat? Or if they decide, hey, because Tim Connolly has been on record and he's going to talk today. He's been on record saying like, hey, we believe that Cat is going to have a banner hanging from the rafters here. And so,
here. Okay. I thought it.
Yeah. When you think about that,
partner up with
it's like, okay, is he true to that? Like, is that the case? Okay, well then Do you try to move a guy like Rudy? But then what's Rudy's trade value even? I think, maybe you're like, hey, he's coming off Defensive Player of the Year award, but then everybody sees, what happened in the playoffs. And look, Rudy got cooked unnecessarily so at times. And I think that was a little tough. That was a little tough.
Unnecessary. Which one? The Luka?
Well, that was a lose-lose situation. You know what I'm saying? That was a lose-lose situation. But I think what's interesting is like Rudy's a free safety. He's a free safety back there. But like, they're putting him on ball, or they're expecting him to stick with his man and all that. He's best when he's roaming, blocking shots, grabbing boards. Like, that's Rudy. But some of the stuff they were requiring, or people are requiring of him, maybe that's just not his game. What is tough though is just seeing that Rudy really has no offensive bag. And that is something that you're like, man, like if he's not catching a lob or he's not catching it right under the basket and dunking it, like what else can he bring to the table offensively? And that's tough as well. But what is his trade value? But Kat was asked by John Krasinski after the game last night, like, do you expect to be here for year 10? And Kat's like, yeah, like nothing has changed on my end. This is where I started. This is where I want to finish. I want to be here in Minnesota. I want to be here, finish this process with my brothers. Like, he's all in. But when you think about the ownership squabble, that was another thing. After the game, A-Rod, Lori, Rob Nelson, sitting on the court as they're cleaning up and trying to get everything together. He's sitting on the court and he's looking around. And those three guys are having a power. And it was a spirited powwow. I took a picture, posted it on X if you want to see that. But it was a pretty spirited powwow that they were having. What's going to happen with this ownership squabble? What is that? Is Glenn going to be okay with going into the second apron with this luxury tax? If so, then maybe you can keep the band. But do you break the band up after going to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 20 years? Like, these are all questions that I am very eager to see how they are answered in the offseason, because that is going to shape what this Wolves team looks like for the foreseeable future. Because this was a team that got further than I think anybody would have thought. But now we're like, okay, what does that mean? And how do they improve on that? And they're in a tough situation when it comes to the salary cap. How do you improve this team? We're talking about like, hey, they need a Scottie Pippen. Well, you can't really afford a Scottie Pippen right now. Like, something has to happen. Things have to be moved around for them to do what it is that maybe we think should happen for them to take that next step.
Yeah, Julia, what are your when you think about that, what are the questions you have for the offseason? He kind of went with the Cat and the ownership. Where are yours going?
I mean, I think the number one question is Cat, right? We're going to hear all the rumors about everything. When it comes to trading him, what do you do? This, that, and the other. You just kind of have to look at his track record, too. The postseason has not been his bright spot, and that's when you need him the most. He was, dare I say, pretty bad during the Western Conference Finals. I mean, this was either, I mean, he's either in foul trouble or he's not putting up any points, or both. I think you just kind of have to look at the track record that he has in the postseason and kind of realize that he's not been a crucial part of your team in any of those performances. I mean, how long has he been with the Wolves? 9 years? Since 2015, right? Well, I guess he was drafted in 2015, but yeah.
Yeah, next year will be year 10.
Yeah, and you just have to like look back and think like, this is our first overall pick, and we haven't gotten anything out of him postseason. And so you kind of have to be real in that sense. People, I don't think people are going to be, I don't know if it's controversial to say, but like terribly upset if they get rid of Cat. I don't, especially after his performance in this series where he just did not deliver for them when They needed him. You have to, if you're going to pay a guy like they are, you should see him performing in the Western Conference Finals. That's when nothing else matters at that point. And if you can't do it then what are you paying him for? So I think the number one thing, and everyone's going to be talking about it now until something happens, is like even Ryan said last night in our sports office, he was like, I feel like this is the last time that we're going to see Karl-Anthony Towns in a Wolves jersey. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. They've got to figure out, and I know that they wanted to bank on Kat and Ant, the two stars of this team, but it's like we talked about this entire podcast. They don't match up with the Luka and the Kyrie dynamic duo. They just don't, because who's not delivering? Kat's not delivering.
Yeah. And so when you think about this, for me, the burning question, I'm more so that, like, can you keep Kat and Rudy? I think that's my question going into the offseason is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep both of them? When you see it works with some series, because Anthony Edwards is all you need with a little bit of Kat, sprinkled in some Nas and Jay McDaniels. But if it's consistency you're looking for, if it's multiple championships you're looking for, you have to look at the blueprint of what some of these other teams have done. When you think about LeBron and Kyrie, when you think about those two, that was all that the Cavs had. You think about LeBron and D Wade, they sprinkled in a little bit of Bosh, and he was willing to take less ball. Like he got less touches, he got less shots, but he was willing to do that to win a championship. You look at LeBron and AD. AD is a consistent, can shoot. He's more like a joker. Like he's not a Rudy Gobert. He spreads the floor out where LeBron can work. It's been duos for the most part for a lot of these teams. And when you think about Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett gave you consistent buckets every game. Paul Pierce gave you consistent buckets every game. And Ray Allen just did what Julia's saying. He shot the ball and he made it when he had to. He did the same thing, and that's why he went to the Heat. They were like, you know what? We won one. Let's get a shooter in here. We were this close. They brought Ray Allen in, and that's why the Celtics hate him to this day, because he defected to the enemy, and he goes over there and wins one with them. So that's the key to this. When you think about how many teams have figured out what they need and went and got in the offseason, that's where the Timberwolves are. That's the burning question. What do they need, and are they willing to go get an offseason and pay whatever it costs to go get them and deal with the luxury tax later? I think that's, if you want a championship, you have it. You're on the cliff looking over. Just spend the money and do it. But we got to move on. We got to talk about this PWHL Minnesota team that won a championship. Julia, what's going on? Because the Wild couldn't get it done. The Gophers couldn't get it done. But the women yet again get it done.
The ladies get it done. That's the Minnesota motto. The ladies get it done. PWHL Minnesota, PWHL very first season. This is the biggest professional women's hockey league that there has ever been. So debut year of the start of something amazing. Minnesota finished their regular season losing 5 games in a row. We were like, they just need one more point to secure a spot in the playoffs. We weren't sure they were going to make it to the postseason. Somehow they squeezed themselves in, and they have to play top-seeded Toronto. They take down Toronto in that first round series. They move on to the finals, and they're playing Boston. They drop game 1. They have a shutout in game 2. They take game 3, so they lead the series 2-1. Last Sunday, I'm at the game, and they have a shot at just putting it away, winning it all, because it's a best-of-5 series. And it goes to double overtime. Minnesota scores. So the way that the overtime works is you score, you win, right? Minnesota scores a goal. They throw the sticks, the gloves, everything. Everyone's celebrating. It's at XL Energy Center, so they're at home. And then they go review. Taylor Heisey has slammed into the goalie. It's goaltender interference. They call it back. So they thought they had won the entire thing. They call it back. Not even like 3 minutes later, Boston scores, and they force game 5, which was this week, obviously. And Wednesday night, they just took care of business. They put up 3. One of them was an empty netter at the end, but a shutout in the final game. They win it. They win the very first Walter Cup. Huge just this season as a whole for women's hockey, this is huge because a lot of times women play hockey just as much as the guys do, especially you see it here in the state of hockey in Minnesota. They play on the travel teams. They do they pay, their parents pay all this money for them to do all of this competitive hockey. And then they go and they play in college, and it's this huge thing in college. And then after that, there's nothing left for them really to do to make money doing it as a professional. And so this league gives them the chance to do that. And that's why it's so spectacular and so cool for women's hockey that this has happened. Even more cool that Minnesota wins the very first cup that they have. So it's been a really cool thing to cover, and it's so exciting to see Minnesota do it all. So yeah.
Reggie.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much more to say from that. Like, it's just interesting because when that goal was called off and they ended up not winning, it was like, oh, here we go, Minnesota sports doing its thing again. And little did we know that was going to come later in the week. With PWHL Minnesota in the house, the Wolves ended up not doing what they needed to do last night. So the ladies always have to show us guys how to get it done. There's no surprise. I am sitting here connected to a very, very strong woman as well that I'm married to, and I can attest that women know how to do it. They do it better. As Ron said, the Lynx are one of the more historic franchises in the state of Minnesota with their 4 championships. They have the most recent one before PWHL. So look, that's just what it is. That's what it is. The women got it done. Way to persevere from what they could have let sink them on Sunday, and they ended up going in there and doing it. Different women scoring goals than we've seen as well. Like dang, like when playing your best when your best is required, and you get an effort from whoever is on the squad that can help. And so like it's amazing. That whole thing is amazing. You save your best performance for the championship, and then you're hoisting the trophy. That's amazing.
Yeah, and so like I said last night, the CJ Ham Foundation, in partnership with Unreal and the Vikings and so on and so forth, they got lucky fans got to come hit a ball. One woman and one man. The man struck out. The woman, she got a hit. Even though Brian O'Neill threw her out at first, I'm from his knees. I'm like, bruh, he fell on the ground, picked it up barehanded, and threw her out from his butt, actually, not his knees. He put a Blake Harfarver in a celebrity softball game. But man, it was crazy. I was like, you could have let her get to first, bruh. Like, what are you doing right now? Threw her out from his butt. But anyway, she got the hit. The man didn't. So we made jokes about that on the mic. But we got really quick before we get out of here. I want to make a mention. SiriusXM is a proud partner with Locked On Sports Minnesota. SiriusXM, you can download all of our shows, all of our content, everything right there on the SiriusXM app. You can take it with you on the go, whether you're on the Apple Market or the Google Marketplace. Whatever your device, you can get SiriusXM. Just download the app. And again, you can get all of our shows on the go. You can also get all the Twins games now. The Twins are the only team really left, I guess, and until football season comes back around, because the Wild are done. The
Lynx.
Timberwolves are now done. Oh, the Lynx. Sorry, I don't know if the Lynx are on SiriusXM though. That's the question. It depends on who their radio broadcast is. We'll have to look into that one. But I know for sure the Twins' hometown broadcast can be found on the SiriusXM app. But again, really quick before we get out of here. We got to make a mention of the Twins. The Twins are on the verge of getting Royce Lewis back from injury. What will that mean for his return, Julia?
It means maybe they'll get some more hits. Essentially, that's what it means.
Very simple.
Yeah, they hit well against the Royals, which they needed. But yeah, maybe they'll get a little taste of the summer sausage when they get him back. Don't. Anyways, offensively, that's where they need him. That's where they use him the most. Get some.
Hopefully, if they decide to actually cook one, it's a fresh new one from the stores and not the one
it's the same one. Kyle Farmer put up a picture of it yesterday. It's the same one.
That is gross.
Just looks nasty, man. I'm ill. I'm not here for it. Yeah, Royce, don't go near that sausage. That's bad juju for him, probably. But yeah, I think it's really, really important to get Royce back, especially during this time. They are fighting for their division lives. You know, I was at an event a couple weeks ago, and Dave St. Peter was there, and he was like, "Hey, 4 out of the last 6 seasons, AL Central champs." That's what they're after this time as well. And the Guardians look amazing. The Royals are better. Even Ron's Tigers look, like they're not going to be left for dead. So this is going to be a tough division until the very end. And so you don't want to see them go on a slump where they're losing 7 straight games again. And I think, just a spark plug bat like Royce Lewis, it really doesn't matter what's going on in the game. He's going to get his, and I think that's going to be a catalyst to keep this team going. So he's, if nothing else, a spark plug and just good energy, man. He just has the best energy on the team. And so they need that moving forward in the heart of the summer when this division race heats up, and he's going to provide that spark. And just hopefully he can stay healthy, because that was a freak injury on opening day when he was really like cooking. It seemed like he's just on his way to a huge year. And then that injury happens and he's out for 2 months. And what are you going to do? So hopefully he stays healthy and stays in the lineup.
Well, we'll see how that goes. The Twins are at 30. They do have 31 games. Won so far, lost 25. They are 6 games behind the lead with the Guardians, but they do have more wins than the Rangers, who are second in the American League West, and they have more wins than the Red Sox, who are third in the American League East. So the Twins are not doing as bad as it might feel like. And like Julia said, maybe Royce Lewis coming back means more hits, because that's all it takes. You got guys on base, get them home, because they miss them. Get them home. But again, I'm Ron Johnson. That's Julia Daniels. That's Reggie Wilson. This has been Locked On Sports Minnesota's Friday Roundtable. We thank all the listeners that continue to like, download, share, continue to interact with us on YouTube as well. We look forward to the comments. Please comment and let us know your thoughts below. Are the Timberwolves set to go, or do they need to add somebody else to get that championship? I want you guys to have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.